Welcome back to the Professional Lovers Channel. I'm Al.
And I'm Patty, and we're glad to have you back for this week's recap of Married at First Sight. You know that we enjoy talking about relationship issues through the lens of Married at First Sight because building relationships is something that we all go through.
True.
And for those who are married or thinking about getting married, engaged, or seriously considering it or thinking about it in your future, sometime there are lots of issues that these couples go through that we have been through that you will go through as well if you haven't already. So that's what we enjoy doing, and we'll get right to it for this week's recap, starting with Kristen and Mitch. Now, most of the couples, let me say before we get started, are married, had their first night, and at the honeymoon. So we talk about those 4 couples who've done that, and then Morgan and Ben last who just got married.
Yeah.
So Kristen and Mitch, the wedding night. After she took everything off, he seemed to relax because he's all about the natural look.
As she peeled off the glamour, he felt better.
He felt better. He got more relaxed. And, you know, even though he's feeling a lot of pressure, he's kind of a tightly wound guy.
Well, again, he hasn't had a relationship in over a year.
Yeah, as he said,
so
a year and a half or so.
He's, and again, he's 41. So I think what he's feeling is what got him to 41 and still not having a relationship. So he's kind of carrying a little baggage and his insecurity about himself. I mean, he blames it on his environmentalism, but I think it's a little bit more of just his insecurity of just being comfortable. And I really think that's it. It's just him being comfortable with himself around anybody else. In this case, his now wife.
And she couldn't find her cutie pajamas, but that was okay with him because, you know, again, she was just dressed down. There was no pressure, you know, so that made him feel good. Now, they both, all the couples after the wedding night talked with the other's family and friends. Yeah. So he met with her mom and her friends. And remember the mom who he thought
might have been
the wife at first. She was just like, "What are your intentions with my daughter?" And he said he wants to give 100%, give the best version of himself, make her happy, make them happy.
And he made mom happy with the answer that he gave.
Right. And then she followed that up with, you know, why have your past relationships not worked out? And he said it was because he wasn't comfortable with himself. He was, you know, he knew that he was in the environment, but it really became a passion. And once he accepted that and threw himself into that work, then it made him feel better. And so, you know, as you said, mom appreciated his answer.
Yeah.
She met with one of his friends. Oh, no, it was his mother, his brother, and sister-in-law.
Sister-in-law, yeah.
Right. Mother, brother, and sister-in-law. And they asked her this. He asked Kristen the same question. What are your intentions with my brother? So both families had that exact question. She didn't really answer it.
No.
But she talked about how she was super excited about the process and that she's all in, which is similar to his saying, I'm going to give her 100%. And then she asked him what she could do to help him. I think she realizes he's a little
different,
awkward, a little bit more reserved than she is. And, you know, the whole pressure thing. She feels like she could fall in love with him yesterday.
Yeah, true.
And he's certainly going to take his time. And the brother reminded me of last season's friends when they talked about
when they threw them,
when they threw their friend under the bus and scared Alyssa so bad that she couldn't deal with it at all. Right? So the brothers are talking about he's got a lot of pride, and sometimes
he can be brutally honest.
The mom said, he can be brutally honest.
You know, to the point where he can hurt your feelings.
Yeah, but don't hold it against them, because it's, and that he can be a jerk sometimes. I mean, look, these are not things that you really want to hear when you don't know somebody.
Or when it is somebody that you do know and you're trying to impress them on their good side or the good qualities of them. I mean, bring those out. I mean, not that you want to blindside somebody, and I understand.
Yeah, but could you use a better term than jerk? I mean, maybe he can be a little abrasive, but he doesn't mean to come off that way. Yeah. Soften the blow a little bit. Some
kind of way.
But thankfully, she was not an Alyssa.
Yeah, true.
So she took that for what it was, which is they're sharing with her who he is, since they know him best. Mm-hmm. And she just, went with it.
Fortunately, she's still happy.
Yes, exactly.
So that wasn't a deal breaker, basically, just to hear those things. I mean, and again, sometimes you can accept someone who knows the person that you're spending time with a little bit more in depth and a little bit more intimately than you may know them. So, they can be a little more honest. That's fine. But be a little bit more diplomatic in your terminology.
Yes, a little bit more tactful.
Yeah.
But again,
hey, he's a great guy, but he has his jerk side. I'm like, well, wait a minute, that don't quite go together.
Yeah. So, but you know what? Again, they both took those things in stride.
Yeah.
And when they met back together to kind of compare notes, he did say that he appreciates her assertiveness. Yeah. And I do too, because right now it seems to be in balance.
Yeah, because he's going to need that.
It's assertive without being aggressive.
Right.
And she heard the brother and told Mitch, just as long as we're making one little... It can be one little iota of progress every day, then she's happy. Yeah. So I think she senses that he needs time.
Prodding, a little support, a little...
But patience. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she seems willing to give that to him.
Yeah. I mean, she's been on the other end of the spectrum, Hey, I'm getting married. Hey, I'm not getting married.
Yeah.
So she's married now.
Yeah.
I'm married now.
All right, Lindy and Miguel. Mm-hmm. All right, so he's already discovered that she's tightly wound as well, but she's, as he would say, a stress ball.
Yeah.
Confirmed by her family.
She just don't shut up.
Yeah.
And I mean, it might be the way the camera's portraying her, and I understand the nervous energy. And Miguel is on time. He's just absorbing it. He's listening. He doesn't get stressed about her incessant talking about stuff.
Although he did get a little deflated with the amount of time that it took her to get out of her wedding dress. She was hunting for her pretty nighties, which she couldn't find, and it took
more than half an hour.
Yeah, and
in the bathroom,
and the anticipation was, kind of fizzled out. But anyway, so he met with her mom and her sister. Her mom and brother and a friend. Yeah, and they basically confirmed that he needs to be calm and reassuring. Because she also easily takes things personally.
Yeah. Case in point. Now, I don't know if anybody saw it. When they were talking about, they
were comparing notes.
Right. Of meeting each other's family and whatnot, because Miguel's sister
she's very protective.
Yeah. And she's kind of like an open book. Okay. He makes money, and he intends to keep his money. not
What
to
are
share.
you bringing to the table?
Yeah, exactly. How are you financially going to bring, what you have to the table to support your union? And, I guess evidently there was some history, previous relationship or whatever.
Well, that's what he indicated.
And he even said that I'm not going to be anybody's sugar daddy. So evidently,
because he's done it before.
He
and he learned his lesson.
Yeah, he makes a good living, and he does well for himself. She in turn has a lot of student loan debt.
Yeah.
And
which is normal for
doctors, especially
the American student.
And depending on how recently she finished her doctorate, she may have the majority of it still left to address. But again, it's legitimate. It's not just out there. Credit cards here.
Right.
Bad investments or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She paid for her education.
And when they were talking about that,
when they were talking about it, actually, Patty had noticed his face at the end of that conversation, but I noticed her face at the end of the conversation, even to the point where I said, "No, you need to rewind that and look at her face." Yeah,
because she was like, I spend all my calories in my brain. And he kind of looked like,
yeah. And again, he's listening, and he's like, "Okay, I see, I understand totally." But then her face when it was like, it was almost like a confession that got out that she didn't want to get out.
And I did rewind it and saw her face. And it was like,
her face. She was like, oh.
Like, oh my goodness, what have I just done?
You're right. Is this a deal breaker? I mean, that was to me, that was the look of what flashed through her mind, And I don't think it would be, because he indicated that, if she has plans on, addressing what that situation is, because if he wasn't there, she'd have to deal with it. So what's your plan of action? Okay, we can discuss that. Move on.
Yeah, and she assured him, it's in my name. You don't have to worry about it. I mean, and that is a typical debt that couples bring to a marriage relationship, just like we did. Yeah. We both had student loans. And it is something you have to talk about, because there's some couples who, are like, okay, well, when we get together, your debt is our debt, and his debt is our debt. But in this situation, we know, because they're strangers and you're not really sure if you're going past 8 weeks or not, then Miguel's like, no, I won't be handling that. And the sister, in talking to her, was like, he wants to see somebody with drive and motivation and ambition. And she was kind of like, and I've done that. I had to do that to get through school. But now I'm kind of relaxing a little bit. And so when she told him that in their discussion, he was like, I just need to see her handle it.
Yeah.
And whatever that means. And of course, she's like, well, if he means I got to work 40 hours a week and, and not. So that's going to be a little something that they have to flesh out. And, hopefully that won't become an issue. There is one thing that she said, though, that we did not agree with.
What's that?
When she was talking to Miguel's sister and friends, and she expressed that she knows that they have to come at this 50-50. The sister was talking about Miguel being a hopeless romantic. And she was like, no, I know that we have to give 50-50. No.
That's never a relationship.
No.
Because you are an independent person, that you're involved with is independent, and in anything that you would do separately that you're wholehearted about, you give 100% at. As a relationship, you each give 100% to that relationship.
Right.
There's no, if you're only giving 50%, that's half of who you are. So,
well, but I understand what she was thinking, because it's a typical way to think.
Right.
That, we're each compromising, but 100.
Right. All in.
Yeah, all in. Okay. Stasha and Nate.
Yes.
She asked a good question of him before they, I think it was when they got to the room for the honeymoon, and
expectation.
The wedding night, I should say. Yeah. What do you expect from a wife?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, right now, being supportive and understanding
Mm-hmm.
and being my best friend.
Yeah.
And then he asked about biggest insecurities.
Mm-hmm.
And for her, she said, she believes that she's a good communicator, but sometimes in touchy situations, especially if she's not getting affirmation or, from...
Which is in many instances a person who is accustomed to being a little vulnerable, and they feel that they're giving of themselves. They're kind of open, and they're not getting a response. Suddenly they'll become a little closed because they feel that, self-preservation is in order right now because I'm not getting that affirmation. So they feel like they have to protect themselves a little bit.
Right. And that means pulling away.
You're right.
He said his biggest insecurity was not feeling accepted or understood. And accepted.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is because of his biracial background, and then being an offspring of an army,
military,
for lack of a better term, an army brat, where they traveled in different environments.
But it was him and his dad.
Right. And he said he was in Greece for a while.
Spain.
He was in Spain for a while. And again, languages that he did not speak. So he was kind of a loner in much of those time frames. And,
then coming back here and dealing with the whole racial thing.
Yeah. So he's had a lot of adapting to do on his own, which, can be challenging, and it can be damaging, a person's psyche, depending on how in depth and how young they were or how old they were.
Well, you say,
adapting.
Elementary school kids are brutal. The
True.
school kids are brutal.
True.
And it's true. Elementary, middle, high.
Yeah.
You have your brutal kids.
Yeah.
Your bully kids.
And sometimes when you're young enough, you can kind of override that as you grow. And sometimes it's deep inset and you kind of pile on top of it and hide it and whatnot. And now you're in a relationship, or you're trying to be in a relationship, and you haven't figured that part of communication out, So.
But what I liked is that she could relate personally to the whole non-acceptance thing because of her biracial background and going to predominantly white schools
being
and
darker than most.
So I like the fact that they had that to connect to. Yes, that common emotional experience to connect to. And then of course he met with her mom and her friends.
A couple of friends.
And they asked him, because of the description that was read about him at their marriage, being a freak in the sheets, Mom wanted to know, how long are you willing to wait for sex? And of course, he said until she's ready.
When she's ready.
Which is, a good thing. And then asked if he had, if there was anything about him that he had not told her yet.
Yeah.
And he talked about his bankruptcy, that he had to file bankruptcy for his business. Right, and that he incurred some debt there. Then Mom asked him, what did he learn from his dad? One thing he'd learned from his dad, and he said, not to quit. And he got emotional. And because a guy crying always tugs at the women's hearts. So when he was crying and wiping his eyes about his dad and being emotional about it, they were like, yes. Yes.
I didn't quite get that, but I can imagine the sentiment. But, again, he thought about his dad and he thought about the qualities of his dad, and he knew that there were limitations because Mom was not there. And, he wanted something that he never experienced, and he wanted that family dynamic.
The nucleus.
And, which is what I can kind of relate to. He gravitated toward the friends and families that he knew, where everybody was, in place, visit here, visit there, and that was kind of like the surroundings that he experienced it through other folks, but he knew that he didn't have it. And then, thinking about his dad and his upbringing, you know, he whatever he did, whatever he created in his son, you know, it got him to this point, and it
filled his heart.
Yeah.
And Stasha appreciated that when he shared that with her, that he got emotional. And she said, like I said, women, you know, I love that you can express yourself that way. Stasha met with Nate's dad and a friend who asked her, you know, is there something that, you know, she hasn't revealed to Nate yet? And she talked about being a workaholic and working,
12, 15-hour days.
Right. And being stubborn and wanting her way because she's used to getting her way. And the friend expressed concern about both things because, you know,
Now
Nate's kind of the same way.
Yeah.
And now that you're in a relationship, how's that workaholic thing going to work out?
Yeah.
How's that going to, you know, he's concerned.
Yeah.
And she said that she knows that she's going to have to work on that.
Compromise. She's going to, yeah.
Yeah, she's working on that. But they're both, you know, very independent, and his friend expressed concern about that because that can be difficult.
True.
If you've been independent that long.
Yeah, you know, you do what you know.
And you've only had yourself to work.
To answer to.
Right. And you asked a good question about the whole workaholic thing.
Mm-hmm.
You phrased the question that the friend asked in a different way, which was
in being that type of individual. Now that you have someone that you are sharing your life with, you know, are you willing to adapt and compromise and rearrange your priorities? Now, I know I didn't.
No, you didn't say it quite like that. It was, is it a choice, or you said is changing your work habit going to be a choice
or a necessity?
No, that was not the word. And then, man, I should have written it down.
Okay.
Because he can't remember it, and neither can I remember the whole thing.
It's off the top
I got
of the
half
head.
of it,
It's
though.
off the top of the head.
Anyway.
And there's a lot of gray up there. I don't retain a whole lot of stuff.
Anyway, it was a good way to look at it. But the friend was essentially asking kind of the same thing. How's it going to change? All right, then Alexis and Justin, they're hilarious. I love their vibe. They're very playful. They're very, you know. Alexis met with his mom and a friend, and they asked about, you know, had she ever been married before, and she said she'd been
proposed to 3 times.
And the mom's face was like, well, what happened with that?
Yeah,
how you get 3 proposals and
you turn them all down?
Yeah, and she was forthright, said that she had unrealistic expectations. She got in her own way. She was selfish. So she overthought it, and probably, you know, turned down some good prospects. But the revelation.
Yes, during the honeymoon when they got together.
Yes.
Because they had both been on dating sites. She realized that she ran across his picture.
They were matched. They were matched on a dating site, and she did not.
Swiped left.
Yeah, she did not show interest and did not reach out to him. And here they are married.
Okay, I didn't realize
they were matched. Very interesting.
Interesting.
Yes.
So maybe divine intervention. They're supposed to be together.
Hey. And Justin met with her sisters,
who are all a piece of work. Because they protecting their girl.
The one that was sitting in the middle, she was not playing. How do you respond when you're angry? We know how everybody can be when they're, you know, lovey-dovey, but what about being angry? And he said he would talk. He would even cry with her. If she was crying, I'm going to cry with her because he is very sensitive.
And he said he's a pleasing type of individual. And they did ask, you know, to what extent? I mean, you just going to let somebody, you know.
Yeah, because the other sister, I like that question. How will you advocate for yourself?
Exactly.
When you need to.
Yeah. And that was the thing. Well, he was like, okay, I'm not just going to let anybody just roll over me.
Yeah.
You know, so he responded in a good fashion. But I think that was an excellent question, being a sensitive guy, knowing her sister. You know, not to say that she's domineering in any way, but she's
very assertive, and slightly aggressive. But she
played football with the fellas.
She keeps it in check pretty well.
Yeah, no, I mean that's part of her personality, though. Yeah. I mean that's who she is. So I don't think any part of that is a facade.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then the couples, they got into the honeymoon and got their sweets, and they went out together and talked about, you know, their first impressions on their wedding day, which was really nice.
Or wedding night.
Right. Then Morgan and Ben finally got married. Finally got married. And she was really nervous. She said more nervous than she'd ever been. Looking for someone who's her equal. Hopes he's patient with her. And of course, he needs mom's approval for her the most. And so, you know, they seem to hit it off very well. They seem to have chemistry from the very beginning.
She liked the look.
She liked the look. Yep.
You know, both of them are very active. You know, he works out, she works out.
Although she scared him with the whole
Muay Thai.
Yeah, kickboxing thing. He was like, ooh. That's a little scary.
She can beat me up.
And surprisingly, it made me feel so good that I'm going to have to say this makes them my couple of the week.
Okay.
Because he said the honeymoon is going to be shortened. We're going to have to do a second honeymoon. And this is before he even saw her.
Really?
We're going to do a second honeymoon wherever she wants to go.
And it's on me.
What?
I'm like, what? Hold up. This is the boy that was in between cushions collecting coins.
Okay.
He's a cheap son of somebody.
And then when they were talking, he found out that her background is Japan.
He was like, "Oh, I love Tokyo," and you know.
That's where we'll go for our second honeymoon.
And she wants to find out about her family and all of that, and he was like all for it. He said, "I even trust her. I mean, he wants to get to a point where he would even be willing to give her his credit card."
Oh my goodness!
I was like, "What?"
That is why. Even though over here I got red flags, this week they are my couple of the week.
Okay. I can even get, because I was kind of surprised at how comfortably giddy they both were, even at the altar. You know, because I'm looking at him as being a true nerd, and you know they've talked about him being a mama's boy and all of that. This week it seemed like he was a little more independent, and I guess it was just me hearing him speak about his perspective on things and just hearing a little bit more from him about himself. You know, he's not a boy, because that's really what was in my mind.
Yeah.
He appeared to me that he was immature for relationships of this magnitude. I feel a little different.
Okay. So are you saying that?
Yeah, I'll give him the nod this week.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Because everybody is kind of like they had a jump start on them, and going back to wedding day, and you know, getting to know you and communicating, talking, just, you know, surface conversation, stuff like that. I like where they're at.
Cool.
Yeah.
I also like that all of the couples are waiting to consummate the marriage until they all get to know each other.
At least until the second day of honeymoon.
Hey, it could be, but at least they didn't jump into anything on the wedding night.
Oh, no. I mean, they had a shower scene that didn't seem like
No, that was honeymoon. That was not the wedding night. That was the second night. Yeah. That was when they had gotten to Mexico.
Within 24 hours.
I'm just saying, it wasn't the wedding night. Now, yes, we don't know, if anything happened after the shower. I can imagine that it would after that kind of shower.
Scene?
But, yeah. But the
I
wedding
felt
night.
dirty.
Yeah, I don't know that I would let the cameraman be that all up into everything like that. But anyway, you know, we don't know. They could have had towels strategically placed, and in the editing, they looked like the cameraman was in the shower with them.
It did.
But a red flag couple this week?
Still gonna go back to Mitch. Mitch, he just got to loosen up a little bit. You know, and I think he just has a certain insecurity because he has not had a relationship in a while. And it's going to take more of her patience in dealing with him, because I'm sure things are going to come out that are going to be awkward for him because he has not related to anybody in over a year. You know, so.
And I'm going to agree.
Yeah,
they are my red flag couple.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Because Mitch already seems like he's trying to talk himself out of something. And now you attribute it to him not having been in a relationship in a long time, and okay, but it just seems like he's going to really have to work hard at not sabotaging himself.
Yeah, true.
To be more vulnerable and more open to the process.
Yeah.
He claims that he has no expectation, but he really does have expectations. And even though Mom said she's not a diva, and she really is, and she has shown some of that, I just get this feeling that he's already self-sabotaging.
No, I'm hoping that's not the case, because there's something that's reserved in him. Exactly what that is. It could manifest itself being self-sabotaging, but it's something that he's just going to have to break through.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So.
In time, Lord willing.
That's the recap for the week.
Yes.
Continue to respond, give us feedback. Hey, to the new subscribers, glad you're joining us. Tell your friends and other folk who...
Respond, speak.
Yes.
Give us some tips, ideas, thoughts.
Like, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yeah.
And we will see you next week. Until then, love yourself.
And each other.
Bye.
Peace.